I'll do a quick off-the-cuff science lesson. Okay, so which can use electricity and matter to, as a comparison to show how there may be, well, to give evidence of the existence of God and that we are supernatural beings in a physical form. So, science, we put a lot of faith in scientists, and scientists don't even know it all, and they admit it usually. But a lot of people try to say everything. This is just fact that we know for sure. So even like the smallest particle of matter, an atom, we have never seen it, but we like have little sensors to tell us things about it, and we just use a theory to explain what we've observed. So, for example, the smallest form of matter is an atom, and they have a nucleus, which is composed of neutrons and is it protons? I forget. But you have on the outside, you have electrons, and in electricity we usually use the helium atom to represent. Well, when I was an avionics technician, my job, because we use helium as a sensor for targeting systems and sensors. So scientists have kind of like, from what we observe, we believe there's little particles, and we name them neutrons, protons, is it proton? An electron. I have to look that up again. I forget. But anyway, so so electricity is believed to be the flowing of the electrons from one atom to the other and on, from a negative to a positive, or a positive negative. From positive to negative, because the negative is where these electrons are you know, it goes to where there's one not there, right? So it goes, the positive pulls the negative electrons to it, right? Anyway, that doesn't matter. I have to look this up again, so I forget. Well, example for lightning, you have the ground, and the ground is the negative, and then you have up in the sky where the clouds are and the air molecules running against each other are generating static electricity. It's a very high positive charge, and that pulls from the ground the electricity into the sky, you know. So then you get lightning. Happens so fast we think it's from down to top, but it's usually from bottom to top. But anyway, so it's the flowing of electrons, and sometimes we can see it, but they're always there, they're always moving. And for like electric cables, we have things like copper or aluminum, and we are able to like batteries or generators, and it powers something like a light bulb, so that's the load, and then you've got a positive and negative. And if it's alternating current, you have a wavelength, and to make like a battery work, you use the wavelength to make it a DC current, so it can again like make the electrons flow through the load, which could be a motor, a light, or whatever. Now, what we see is the wires, right? And we like can't see the electricity flowing, but you can feel it and measure it. So what we see is the cable, right? And then we can use sensors to see how it reacts and how it powers a load, like a light bulb, for example. So in the past, they were trying to better insulate wires to prevent like power or signal from getting out. So they put more insulation on them. And the more insulation they used, the more power they needed to go through there, because it was creating more resistance. Even though the cable itself didn't have any more resistance. They just put more, you know, like the cable here, and then they just put more insulation on the outside to keep the signal in there and to like protect the cables. But what they found is there is an invisible field around the cables that are energized. That's also how we measure them, and that's also how you can like charge batteries through induction. These are called magnetic lines of induction. It is also how they use like a generator or motor. You take some coils and you energize them, and you have other coils around them, and they get the induction, and they can be used to make power by either alternating the current or having a the poles polarized so that the magnets in here and the coils will spin. If you usually use a magnet to make it spin, or coils. So anyway, so they found that that they need an important part of the power flow is the invisible field that you know, the induction field. And if you cover that too much, you make it harder for the electrons to flow and give you electricity, harder for the electricity to flow. So now we do things to help that, and sometimes we have to have like an extra ground cable that's not connected to anything to help control where these little lines of induction go. So sometimes we don't want them to go somewhere because it'll interfere with the signal or things like that. And this goes to like this power, electric power, could be alternating current or direct current. Powers our load, yeah? Okay, so how does this relate to proving there's a God, or that we have a supernatural spirit inside our bodies? Well, we are, you know, we have a body, animals also, and plants. And there's this thing that no scientists have ever been able to reproduce. So you can only take a living thing and have that living thing reproduce, and then we have more of the same living thing that already had life. Science has never, in the existence of science or humanity, produced life. We only theorize how it could start. We take all kinds of elements and we try to combine them, and we have never created life. Only God has been able to create life, and when he made Adam, he said he breathed into him the breath of life. So that's like the breath of life is like the battery that God put in us, right? And it's not just that our body has physical life, but we also have a spirit, a supernatural life inside of us. So the breath of life is what God gave our spirit, the energy to operate, well, our soul, our existence, but it also is connected to the physical body. And there's some metaphysics that go on here that even people who've been studying theology and philosophy all their entire lives are still arguing about. But in the Bible it says, when the silver cord is cut and when the pitcher is broken at the well or the cistern, when the bowl is broken at the well or the pitcher at the cistern, the water returns to the water. So the Bible compares our spirit to water, and like there's a lot of words for spirit or divine beings. Like it can be like, a lot of people want to say spirit is a divine thing because it's supernatural, and sometimes people just say the supernatural is divine. But then there's also evil spirits, which, if supernatural is just divine, way we think of divine as like pure and holy and like God, like the absolute good. So then the evil spirits are the opposite of that, like the absolute void of all of that, right? So ultimately, when a person gets to hell, they end up with the absolute void of all of God's goodness, and that is hell. It's like the opposite of all joy, life, and health. A place where it's all void of that. And they like to compare it to the lake of fire or eternal suffering. And it's a good comparison, because if you take away everything that's good and healthy, then what do you got left? You got sickness and disease and loneliness and sorrow and sadness, and so it sounds bad that people like, oh, God's putting people in hell because they don't do what he wants or whatever. He's like, no, it's justice. It's what you asked for. You didn't want to be part of the divine, the goodness through Christ. You wanted to be, alone and separated from that because whatever, somebody made you mad, somebody offended you, just don't have any faith or whatever, right? So in the same way that electric cables, what we see is the power, the electric cable, and we can measure it, but we can't see the electric field. Sometimes we can feel them if we put our hands, because we got iron in our hands. If we put them close to the electric field, we'll feel it. It might make our hair stand up. But what we see is our physical body, but what we don't see is our spirit and our soul. And it is an energy that, I can feel it, we can sense it. It's like your true self. I was hit by a car once and knocked out of my body, had an out-of-body experience. I also had like a paralysis demon, but it was like, there's several things that tell you that, like, when I was having a dream about a ghost, and the ghost was familiar, and anyway, it reminded me of someone who was mad at me and were practicing witchcraft, and then this spirit wasn't letting me, get out of bed. It was like not letting me breathe or move. And then I sensed the presence, and I called in the name of Christ, and it was immediately gone. So then I sat up and threw the blanket off the bed because I was already pressing against it. So, and the Ouija board, for example, is a way people try to sense the supernatural, which I kind of think it's a form of some hypnosis, but I think hypnosis does help us tap into the supernatural, or our subconscious. What is the subconscious? I believe that the subconscious is your soul, your spirit. So it's always there. It's always conscious, even if you're asleep. But that's like with the electricity, the field that you can't see, the wavelength, the vibe, the energy, whatever you want to call it, it's always there. And if you try to hide it, it just makes it harder for everything to move through. So let's say someone wants to practice witchcraft or become possessed by a demon. So they tap into this evil power devoid of God and holiness and pureness. And that energy will come out of them or radiate from them, right? And they'll do bad things. But if you tap into the holy power of God through Christ, that energy, that power, that pureness, that holiness will radiate through you into other people. And we have a name for it. It's God. It's love. Or even God's love. And which is the most powerful thing in the universe. It's the reason why he created everyone. And it's God himself is what holds the universe together. Is the main vibe. Even the lowest form of atomic particle is energy. It's vibration. It's it is not a physical thing. It is something that is just that we can sense, but we don't. It is a thing, an energy form that produces physical forms. Right? I'm always studying these little sciences and relating it to supernatural power, because this world, this material existence is temporary, and we're not going to be here forever, and we need to prepare for our eternity, which is forever. If you want to do a timeline of your existence, somewhere here you start, and somewhere here you end, and then this goes on forever. So wouldn't you want to, this part is a lot bigger than this part. So wouldn't you want to have this part ready before you leave this part? You know, so you don't have to be in the void, the emptiness, separated from God forever. Wouldn't you want to be in God's love and happiness forever? And we have a way to that. It's through Christ, because nobody can earn that ourselves, because our grandparents Adam and Eve broke our relationship with God. So we're all born separated from God's love, but we have sort of like the temporary way to feel love and God's love. Well, feel love, and it's through people. We also feel the absence of God's love and God through people, and that's what interferes with our relationship and getting on the vibe, you know, of God's love, the vibration, the energy, the power of God's love, you know? So I hope this helps people. I don't know. This is just, you know, science was made by God. It does not disprove God. And just saying that you don't see God in it it's fine. I can make piece of art, and you won't see me in the art necessarily unless you know me, and then you can see, okay, I know Paul, and that kind of looks like Paul when I do a sculpture of a face or something, or if I leave my fingerprint in it, you know. So anyway, there is evidence out there for God. We all can see it and sense it. We tend to like want to run away from it for whatever reason, you know, but people want to blame evil on God, because if God was good, then why does he let evil persist? Well, it's because he gave us a choice, and we chose poorly, and that hurt not just ourselves, but everyone, because the energy, the vibes that go through us radiate out to the rest of the world. You know, it's not just, no one is an island, as they say. Okay, I think it's almost a 20-minute old video. I don't know if it helps anybody. I hope it does.